A narcissist doesn't hate you because you walked away. They envy you because you possess an emotional strength they've spent their entire life unable to access. That kind of strength they don't understand, and they'll never admit it. Instead, they might mock you, paint you as weak or detached, but deep inside they know the truth. You did something they could never do. You walked away without making noise, without proving anything, without needing a happy ending. You chose peace, and that choice made them feel powerless. To a narcissist, you weren't just a lover or companion. You were their mirror, the place they measured their emotional power, their control, their sense of existence. Every time you reacted, got upset, cried, or broke down because of them, they felt validated. In their twisted reality, your pain was the evidence of their influence. That's how they felt significant. But when you no longer react, when you stop arguing, stop explaining, stop trying to fix or hold things together, suddenly all their tools of manipulation fall apart. And that's when the confusion sets in, because they realize none of it works anymore. You've become something they can't control, something they can't manipulate, something that no matter how hard they try, they can no longer summon back through pain. And that is unbearable to them. To a healthy person, that's growth. But to a narcissist, it's a loud declaration that they've lost their power, and nothing terrifies them more than losing control over the one person they believed would always return. That's why they can't truly let go of you. They might fake indifference, pretend they've moved on, post smiling pictures with someone new as if you never mattered. But beneath that mask is an unspoken obsession. They watch you in silence, not because they still love you, but because they can't stand that you've found peace without them. Their jealousy isn't about the things you show off. It's about the things you no longer need to explain. You don't need their understanding. You don't need their validation. You don't need an apology. And that what makes them feel deeply defeated. So in the next part of this video, we're going to dig deeper into the heart of the issue. What exactly is emotional strength? Why can't narcissists build it? And what happens when you develop what they've always craved but could never truly have? So what exactly is emotional strength, and why does it feel so threatening to a narcissist? Emotional strength isn't about never crying. It's not about always being tough, stoic, or cold in the face of pain. On the contrary, it's the ability to face your emotions without letting them throw you into chaos. It's being able to hurt yet still hold your dignity, to stumble but not lose your self-worth. Emotional strength doesn't scream, "I'm fine." It quietly whispers, "I'll make it through in my own way." And that's something a narcissist simply doesn't have. Deep in their subconsciousness, narcissists never learned how to process emotions in a healthy way. They avoid pain by blaming others. They escape feelings of inadequacy by tearing people down. They feel empty, and instead of sitting with that emptiness, they go out searching for someone else to fill it. But the problem is, no one can fill a void that comes from rejecting your own self. So when they meet someone like you, someone with a real heart, real feelings, and a genuine desire for connection, they feel drawn in. But it's not love. It's attraction to something they can't create within themselves. You become a source not just of affection, but of emotional reflection that they desperately feed on. You become their emotional supply. At first, you thought you were sharing love, but in reality, you became a mirror, reflecting back the image they wanted to see of themselves. Every time you cried over them, they felt important. Every time you forgave them, they felt powerful. And every time you were in pain, they felt real. But then you started to wake up. You stopped playing the healer. You stopped trying to be their savior. You put it back in silence and chose to heal yourself. And in that moment, the wall they built around themselves began to crack, because suddenly No one was validating their existence anymore. No one was reacting. No one was crying over them, and that's what terrifies a narcissist the most. Your silence isn't just empty space. It's a refusal to feed their illusion of power. Your emotional strength renders them powerless. They can't manipulate you, they can't shake you, they can't pull you back with a few fake apologies. You've learned how to step away without bitterness. And to them, that isn't just a loss. It's a direct blow to the fragile ego they've tried to protect their whole life. But if narcissists aren't afraid of your screaming, crying, or begging, they're afraid of your silence. They're afraid of the way you look at them, without need, without hope, without attachment. They're afraid you'll walk away without needing to win or lose, because that proves you've gained mastery over your emotions. And that, to them, is absolutely unbearable. A narcissist's envy isn't like the kind of jealousy you've seen before. It's not obvious, it's not acknowledged, and it rarely shows up in words. They'll never look you in the eye and say, "I wish I had the peace you have." Instead, their envy hides behind a mask of indifference, wrapped in sarcastic remarks or veiled in subtle disdain. Especially when you begin living a life that no longer revolves around them. Ironically, as long as you were still hurting, they felt safe, because your pain meant you were still reacting, still crying, still angry, still blaming. And those reactions were proof that they still existed in your mind. But when you go silent, with no hatred, no love, no attention, they lose the only thing that ever confirmed their sense of worth. That's when a new form of envy sets in. But it's not admiration, it's bitterness, it's suppressed rage, it's the slow burn of defeat when they see you, someone they once manipulated, now walking away in peace, without ever looking back. Of course, they'll never say they're jealous. They can't, their ego won't allow it. So instead, they find other ways to shake your foundation. They mock you for being cold. They accuse you of being cruel, heartless, or selfish. But those accusations don't come from truth. They come from frustration, from the helplessness of watching you escape the emotional game they once controlled so well. You no longer need them, and that, more than anything, is what they can't stand. Because to them, you were once a mirror, a living reflection through which they saw themselves as strong, important, and influential. But when you grew and left, you took the mirror with you. They no longer see themselves in your eyes, no longer feel validated by your reactions, no longer have someone there to keep propping up the image they built. And in losing you, they didn't just lose a person. They lost the illusion of who they thought they were. Their envy grows not because you're prettier, more successful, or happier, but because you no longer need anyone to confirm those things for you. You don't brag, you don't defend yourself, you don't fight back against their slander. You just live, quietly, confidently, and truthfully, and that enrages them. Because you've done something they never could. You've accepted yourself without needing someone else to be your mirror. So they attack, not with fists or shouting, but with cold words, with twisted stories, with subtle manipulation. The goal isn't to destroy you, the goal is to pull you back, so they can once again see their reflection through you. But this time, you're no longer there. You don't need them anymore. You don't react. You don't try to understand them. And that pushes them into a terrifying void, because in your silence, they're forced to face a painful truth. They never truly had power. All they ever had was your reaction. And now that you've learned to hold on to your emotions, now that you've stopped reflecting the image they wanted to see, to them, you're not just the one who walked away. You're the one who took your power back. And that is what they envy the most. When a narcissist realizes they no longer have control over you, it's not a loud moment. There are no screams, no tears, no dramatic outbursts. But behind that silence is a quiet collapse, one even they don't fully understand. Because for a narcissist, control isn't just a habit, it's the foundation of their very existence. Throughout your time with them, they became experts at reading your every expression, every shift in tone, every sigh, all to manipulate you. They knew how you'd react when they went silent, when they pulled away, when they threw out their usual jabs. Every reaction you gave was proof that they still had power. But when you stopped reacting, when your eyes became calm, your words no longer justified and your heart no longer expected, they began to lose their sense of direction. And that's when something strange happens. They no longer know who they are. Because the truth is, they never built a real sense of self from within. They've always lived by reflecting themselves through others. They exist when someone loves them, fears them, envies them, or desires them. But when there's no one left to absorb those projections, when the stage is empty, the audience is gone, and you're no longer part of the performance, they realize there's no role left to play. In that moment, they don't collapse because they lost you, they collapse because they lost the role they were clinging to so desperately. And because they can't bear to face that emptiness, they scramble to fill it. Some will dive headfirst into a new relationship, not out of love, but out of need. They need a new supply, someone new to validate their existence, a new set of eyes to reflect the image they're desperately trying to hold on to. But no matter how agreeable, how compliant the new person is, they can't reflect the narcissist as deeply as you once did. Someone who once hurt, once loved, once truly understood them, and then walked away. Others will withdraw, become distant, or suddenly transform their lifestyle. They might begin a spiritual awakening, jump into healing journeys, or loudly embrace self-love. But in many cases, it's just another mask, slapped on to avoid the hollow emptiness they've never learned to process. All of those responses, beneath the surface, stem from one simple truth. You're no longer within their emotional orbit. And when you're no longer there to yell, to beg, or even to hurt, they begin to realize the game is over. Not because they lost, but because you stopped playing. They may still act composed, still laugh, still post pictures, still live as if nothing ever happened. But the one thing they can't hide is their eyes. Eyes that are always searching for reflection, always needing validation, always afraid they're fading into invisibility in a world they can no longer control. And it's in that invisibility that the quiet collapse begins. After the quiet collapse begins, the narcissist refuses to accept the truth that they've lost control. They're not used to being the one left behind, especially without the chance to rewrite the script. To them, every ending must be on their terms. It must be them walking away, or at the very least you coming back, broken, regretful, begging. But this time, none of that happens. You don't return. You don't need them. And that is something they simply cannot accept. So they do the only thing they know how to do: restart the game. But this time, the tactics are more subtle, more polished, even seemingly mature. No more overt insults or crude manipulation. Instead, they use softer strategies, ones that appear harmless on the surface, but still stem from the same need for control. They might send a vague, low-effort message like, "Just wanted to know if you're doing okay," or say something like, "I've changed. I'm learning how to love in a healthier way." They might even apologize, but the apology never comes with true accountability. It's not repentance, it's a knock on the door to see if it's still unlocked. And if you answer, they'll step right in. If you react, they'll feed off that energy. If you hesitate, they'll write the next scene. But this time, there's one thing they didn't expect. You've changed. You're no longer the person who reacts emotionally. It's no longer the one waiting for explanations. No longer the one hoping they'll come back as a better version. You are now the one who understands that true power doesn't lie in their words. It lies in your choices. And when they realize their old tactics no longer work, that you see through every layer of performance, that you're no longer swayed by empty promises or superficial closeness, something happens. They begin to withdraw. But this withdrawal isn't like before. It's not a strategic silence meant to lure you back in. It's a retreat laced with bitterness, because for the first time they understand that you're no longer a source of supply. Not because you don't care, but because you've learned to care for yourself more. You've seen the game for what it is, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back into the cycle that once held you captive, because now you know you have nothing to prove to someone who never truly saw you in the first place. And in that moment, they lose, not because you fought back, but because you stopped playing by their rules. When every tactic has run dry, when no apology can reach you, and when your silence is no longer temporary but final, the narcissist enters a state of quiet panic. But it's not panic over losing you as a person. It's a much deeper fear. The terror of losing the mirror that once reflected back to them the feeling that I exist. They've never truly existed in their authentic self. Their sense of being has always depended on how others see them, through being noticed, reacted to, admired, or even feared. Every reaction you once gave, whether it was anger, pain, or forgiveness, served as fuel to sustain a fragile identity held together by external validation. So, when you stop reacting, stop searching for answers, stop engaging in dialogue, they don't just lose a relationship, they lose the identity they clung to. And in that empty space, a terrifying truth begins to emerge. They don't know who they are without your reflection. Imagine someone who's never learned to stand in front of a mirror and truly see themselves. They've only ever recognized their image through the eyes of others. When that mirror disappears, they lose all form. They become invisible. And in a narcissist's inner world, invisibility is worse than death. Unable to face that emptiness, they begin to spiral internally. Some adopt new roles: the awakened soul, the wise one, the healer. They might start posting deep quotes, claiming they've changed, that they've learned to love themselves, but beneath it all, it's still just another mask. A new form of control, wrapped in the language of growth. Others rush to replace you. A new relationship appears, as if you never existed. But don't mistake that for happiness. The new person isn't someone they love. They're someone they need to feel like they still matter, to be reflected again, to keep a role alive. But sooner or later they'll realize no one can replace you. Not because you were perfect, but because you truly saw them and stayed until you couldn't anymore. And that's what makes the emptiness inside them grow louder. No matter how confident, cheerful, or evolved they may seem on the outside, deep down, they are haunted by a question they can't bear to answer. Who am I if no one reacts to me anymore? Sadly, most narcissists will never choose to face that question. They don't have the courage to confront themselves once the tools of control are gone. So they build a new role, find a new partner, start a new cycle, all to avoid the truth. Their ego never truly existed in the first place. And for you, the one who walked away, the most important thing to remember is this: your silence isn't just distance. It is the end of a power system they once depended on to survive. You're no longer the mirror. There is no one left to reflect them. And when the stage lights go dark, what's left behind is nothing but a nameless emptiness. Freedom. To most people, it's light. But to a narcissist, your freedom is the kind of darkness they can't control. It's not about physical distance, and it's not just the fact that you're no longer beside them. It's something deeper, emotional freedom. The kind that means you no longer belong to the emotional narrative they used to control, and that alone leaves them confused, angry, and ultimately afraid. They used to believe you'd come back. They were convinced you needed them, not out of love, but because they assumed you were emotionally dependent. In their mind, you were weak, always seeking validation, incapable of functioning without their presence. But they were wrong. When you walked away silently, without begging, without demanding, without clinging, you dismantled the entire structure of power they thought was unshakable. What scares them the most isn't that you left. It's that you never looked back. You didn't send bitter messages, didn't post dramatic statuses, didn't drop desperate hints that you were still hurting. Instead, you left gently. Not because you were cold, but because you had healed enough to no longer need anyone else to define who you are. Your silence isn't just the absence of noise, it is a quiet declaration of inner power, a firm statement that says you saw through the game and chose to stop playing, not because you were defeated, but because you realized it was no longer worth your energy. And now the simple acts of your new life, your genuine smile, your quiet maturity, your peaceful gaze free from emotional chaos, have become a living nightmare to them. Not because they still love you, but because you are doing what they never could. Living truthfully, without performance, without needing to control others to feel valuable. They might pretend they don't care, but they're still watching. They might say, "You're cold, heartless, or fake," but those are just covers for a truth they can't admit, that you made it out. Without them, you've become a living reminder of the very thing they always tried to achieve through manipulation, control, and deception, a solid sense of self that doesn't rely on anyone's approval. And what enrages them the most is this: you didn't find that strength because of them, but after you walked away from them. Every day you live in authenticity. They're confronted with their own falsehood. Every time you shine without needing applause, they feel smaller inside the inflated identity they built. Every sign that you've broken free is a cut into the lie they once believed, that they would always be the center of your world. But now, you've reclaimed that center for yourself. No need to win, no need for approval, just the desire to be free. And that freedom has made you into something they both long for and deeply resent. They can no longer reach you. They can't return. They can't manipulate. They can't make you question yourself. Because you've seen the truth. And the truth is this: you're stronger than they ever believed. You don't need them. And you've set yourself free. There's a truth you only realize after you walk away. You never needed the narcissist to be whole. During your time with them, you believed that if you just tried a little harder, sacrificed a bit more, or forgave long enough, things would eventually change. You thought that the love you gave would be enough to fill the empty spaces inside them, but in the end you came to understand nothing you did could ever reach them, because they never intended to reach within themselves. It was in the moment you stopped trying, when you refused to keep hurting yourself for the sake of an illusion, that you began a deeper journey, the journey back to yourself. And the miracle is, you didn't need a dramatic explosion, a final confrontation, or for them to break down in regret to feel strong. You only needed peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you no longer have to play the savior in a script written by someone who never intended to share the stage. At first, freedom can feel disorienting. When there's no one left to manipulate your emotions, no one constantly making you question your worth, you're left staring into that space, asking, who am I if I no longer revolve around them? But slowly, day by day, you begin to hear your own voice again. You stop searching for validation. You no longer need to prove anything. You begin to live. Not to be seen by someone else, but to truly be present with yourself. And that is what makes your freedom the most haunting reality for the narcissist. Not because they still love you, but because they can't bear the fact that you've done something they've never dared to face, healing yourself without needing anyone to play the role of rescuer. Every peaceful smile, every boundary you uphold, every step you take without reacting is a crack in the false world they once built to manipulate everyone around them. But you didn't walk away for revenge. You walked away because you had grown enough to know that loving someone doesn't mean abandoning yourself. And now, you don't need closure. You don't need a pretty ending. You don't need their validation or for them to admit you were right, because you created your own ending by choosing truth over illusion, choosing yourself over dependency, choosing peace over cycles of pain. Your victory doesn't lie in whether they miss you or regret losing you. Your victory is that you no longer need them to. It's when you can stand on your own without anyone holding your hand, when you can smile without needing someone's approval, and when you can live, truly live, not to escape pain, but because you've found pure joy in simply being yourself. So, if there's one final truth you should carry with you after all of this, let it be this: you never needed them to be complete. You only needed the courage to let go. And in letting go, you lost nothing. You simply came home to yourself. If you've listened all the way to the end of this video, chances are there's been a pain inside you, but also a quiet strength beginning to rise. Remember this: you don't have to return to the past to find the answers. Everything you need is found in the choice you make each day, the choice to choose yourself. Don't let anyone define you by the wounds they left behind. You weren't born to be a victim in someone else's script. You were born to write your own story, one rooted in truth, in freedom, and in deep compassion for yourself. If this video has touched something inside you, take a moment to like, share, or subscribe to the channel, not to boost numbers, but so this message can reach someone else who might need it just as much as you once did. And if you're in the middle of your healing journey, don't forget, you're not alone. We're walking this path together, step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment, learning how to let go and return home to ourselves. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, be gentle with yourself.